Pre-algebra lesson 100, advanced ratio problems. So the way advanced ratio problems work is very similar to our old rate problems. So if you remember our rate problems, we'd have to write the two rates for the problem and then figure out which rate we were going to use when we solve the problem. And that's how advanced ratio problems work. But the question is, how do I find more than one ratio? Well, the truth is that every single ratio problem you've ever solved, including the ones that we've done this school year, the ones you did on your previous lesson, have actually had three ratios in them. But we've only been using one of the three. So let's take a look at the idea of three ratios. Okay? The way the idea of three ratios works is we have part A to part B, or we have part A to the total amount, or part B to the total amount. And so far, your equations have only given you one of these ratios and told you to use the one ratio. Okay? Now, what's going to happen now is your problem will give you, they might give you ratio 1, the part A to part B, but the ratio you actually need to solve the problem might be the third one or the second one. Okay? So we need to understand the three ratios and then how to what's the word? How to solve them, use them, right? I'm having trouble with English today. So if we were to draw this in a box diagram like our percent problems, the way that this would look is, let's do a ratio first. Let's say the ratio of let's say the ratio of cups to bowls, right? Well, let's say the ratio of cups to bowls is 3 to 5, right? I've got two parts of the problem. I've got 3 cups for every 5 bowls, and you best believe I'm going to label my ratios. Right, so I've got 3 cups for every 5 bowls. Right? I can write the other 2 ratios using this information. Right? But first I'll draw a diagram. Right? So the diagram would look like this if I were to do a box diagram. For the ratio A to B, let's see, I've got one, we'll call that's about 3, right? So there's my 3 cups, and then the other part would be 5 bowls. Right? So that's kind of what this ratio is showing. Now, the question is, how can I find a ratio of A to total? What is the total? Well, the way you find the total is you add the 2 parts. We can see that on the diagram. The total number of pieces of what do you call it? Glassware, plateware, flatware, and the number of items is 8. Right? That's the total. I can see that through addition. And that's how you find the total in these ratio problems. So I would say, okay, well, for here, the total, I'd say, okay, the total is 8, right? And this ratio of 3 to total is just going to be right here, the 3 cups to the total amount, right? And then vice versa, the other ratio right here, would be the 5 bowls to the total of 8. Okay? And this is a really good picture of how our 3 ratios work in our problem. Right? So now that we've got a visual and a real understanding of how these ratios work, let's go to solving. Right? So again, if you remember on our rate problems, we would always start by writing the 2 rates. With these advanced ratio problems, we're always going to start by writing the 3 ratios. Okay? And we'll have to use addition or subtraction to find out what the other 2 ratios are. All right, so let's go to the problem. Let's see here. They say Farmer Dunkowski wanted to plant his farm with wheat and corn in the ratio of 7 acres to 9 acres. If he had 640 acres, how many should be planted in wheat? Okay, so first let's start with the ratio, 7 acres to 9 acres, and what's the order here? It's 7 what? Okay, wheat and corn, so that's 7 wheat, 9 corn, because they always use the same order, right? That's grammatical consistency. If they say wheat, corn, then the numbers will be wheat, corn, so that's 7 wheat to 9 corn, all right? Let's go ahead and write this ratio. I have 7 wheat over 9 corn. Okay, right, that is my first ratio. Now I need to write the other two. So since wheat and corn are two different parts of the total, I know that this is A and B. I add them. 7 plus 9 is 16. That means my total number is going to be 16. So that's my second ratio. The second ratio is going to be A to total. So I'm going to have 7 wheat to 16 total. And then I'll have 16 total to 9 corn. Great, I found my 3 ratios. Now I have to use my logical brain and figure out which of the 3 ratios I need to use to solve the problem. So let's go back, find out what they're asking for. Whoops. It says he had 640 acres. How many should be planted in wheat? Well, this 640, is that referring to corn? No, that's how many acres he had total. And we want to find wheat. So the ratio we should use should involve total and wheat. So let's go back over here. Which ratio has total and wheat? Oh, it's wheat and corn. Ah, here we go, total and wheat. So this is the ratio I'm going to use. So now I go into my normal solving. I'm going to create a proportion. And I'll put 7 wheat over 16 total is going to equal blank over blank. Let's go back to the problem. Let's see here. 640, that's the number of total. So 640 is going to go down here. All right, once I've done that, I can go ahead and erase the letters. I'll put my unknown, and then I cross multiply to solve. Okay, so when I cross multiply, I end up with 16x is equal to 7 times 640. Ooh. Okay, now I have to divide each side by 16. That cancels. Oh, hey, I know 16 and 64 are both divisible by 2. 16 becomes 8. 64 becomes 32, and then if I bring the 0 along for the ride, that's 320. Okay, and hey, I know how many times 8 goes into 32. That's 4 times, so that's 1, and then 4, bring along the 0, 40. Okay, so if I do 7 times 40, I've got the final answer. I know 7 times 4 is 28, add the 0, so x is going to equal 280, all right? If you're still having trouble doing proportions in the method that I just showed you, feel free to go ahead and do your normal multiplication algorithm and then your old long division algorithm. But the more you can work with fractions this way and reduce them, the easier of a time you'll have, all right? Now, there we go, I've got my answer. How long has this video been? Oh, we're already at 8.5 minutes, almost 9. Okay, well, the last thing I was going to say is you don't always have to add to find the other 2 ratios. Like, for example, if they started off with this ratio, you can always take the total amount and subtract the part to find the other part, and that will help you figure out the rest of the ratios. Okay, but if you guys have any other questions, let me know on the school website, and I'll see you in class.